Welcome to becoming an Adobe Captivate superhero by building your e-learning utility belt. So this approximately 1-hour course will teach you a series of advanced interactions that you can build with Adobe Captivate 2019. The first interaction I'm going to teach you is a flip card interaction. I'll show you how to build it with 3 individual flip cards, but the knowledge and skills that you'll gain from that lesson, you can apply it to 2-card interactions, 3-card interactions, 4 and 5-card interactions, whatever you need. And of course, if flip cards are too much for the amount of space that you have on slide, I'll show you how to build what I call a content carousel, which will allow you to chunk out all your information into small, easy to digest chunks for your learners to help you deal with cognitive load. The third interaction that you'll learn today is how to build a single answer, multiple choice knowledge check. One that provides feedback based on the answer that the learner has selected, and of course also be able to lock in their answer once they get it correct. All of these interactions deal with forced navigation. We won't get into debating the benefits of forced navigation, but suffice it to say, anyone who's been in e-learning long enough knows that stakeholders ask for forced navigation all the time. So here's a way you can provide it through these individual interactions. Let's get started. Let me explain a little bit about what's on the screen here. So I've created these flip cards. They are shapes, rounded rectangle shapes, and I've assigned them to be used as buttons. The default rollover and down states have been deleted, and instead I created a custom state called flipped. And if I show you flipped, you'll see that here's where the extra details of this particular item include. So we talk about operational excellence, and we're going to click here to learn more. And of course, if we take a look at flipped, you'll see, of course, the more that I'm talking about here. These shapes used as buttons also have a neat little bonus that I've added to them, and they contain a image fill in the background. And the image I chose was an image I created that included this little flip around icon in the bottom right hand corner, and therefore I tiled them starting in the bottom right hand corner. The image is large enough to basically be any size that you wish. So if I resize this, don't worry about seeing the icon there. And you're welcome to use this shape, this rounded rectangle shape here. So all 3 have that same sort of format. The other thing, because of the nature of this type of e-learning where we have forced navigation, hidden next buttons that don't show up until the interaction is completed, it makes sense to turn off your playback control. So that's what we're going to do right now. I've gone into the skin editor, which is available from the project drop-down menu. I'm going to uncheck show playback controls, and I'm going to move over to the borders tab, and we're not going to show borders here, so I'm going to uncheck that as well. And I can go ahead and close the skin editor window. Now, the first thing we need for this interaction to work is we need to keep track of a few things. And when you need to keep track of things in Adobe Captivate, you create user variables where you can store those things and then recall them later. The things I need to keep track of is whether I've pressed on all 3 of these. So I'm going to have a variable that will keep track of if I've completely pressed all 3. But I'm also going to need a variable to keep track of whether it's normal, like this one here, or displaying the flipped state, because that's going to be important as well. So we're going to go into the project drop-down menu and select variables. Now I'm going to add a new variable by clicking here. And I like to start all my variables with an underscore. The reason I do this is that when I'm looking at a list of variables, it's normally going to be mixed up with the system variables in Captivate. If all of my variables start with an underscore, they'll be all grouped together and in alphabetical order, so it'll be easy for me to find them. So underscore, I follow that with S02 for the slide number, underscore, and then of course the object that it's related to, in this case flipcard 01. Now, to make it easier to create a total of 6 of these variables that follow sort of the same structure, I'm going to press Control A and Control C on my keyboard to copy it. And I'm going to go ahead and save the first one. Optionally, I could put a value in this field here. I could give it a value of 0, which is what I happen to be starting with. But in Captivate, null, or blank if you will, is really the same thing. So you don't need to worry too much about that. So I'm going to press save. I'm going to click add new immediately, and then paste what I just copied and change the 01 to 02 and press save. We'll do that a third time and change the 2, or in this case the 1 to 3. So now I have the variables I need to keep track of whether these objects are in their normal state or whether they're in their flipped over state. Like I said, I need to keep track of whether these have been pressed at all. So I'm going to add a new variable, and this one's going to be same structure as before, but I'm going to add underscore completed. I'm going to copy this same structure again, save that, and we'll add new. Paste that in, and I'm just going to change the 01 flip card to 02, and we'll save that. And the same thing again, except for flip card 03, and we'll save that. So now we have all the variables for this slide and the advanced actions I'm going to write. So I can go ahead and close the variables window. Okay, so now we're ready to write our first advanced action. So we're going to click on the project drop-down menu and select advanced actions. The reason you use advanced actions is in Adobe Captivate, in the properties inspector of any button that you create, and these flip cards are essentially just buttons, you can only assign a singular action to them. So if you need 2 or more actions, or you need to check the condition of something in order to choose which set of actions you're going to run, you need to use advanced actions. And the second of those two, a condition based advanced action, is what we're doing. So we're going to select conditional tab and create our first advanced action. So I like to name these similar to the variables that they work with and similar to the names of the objects that they work with. But of course, in variables, I start them with the underscore. In this case here, I'm going to call this slide 02 underscore flipcard 01. No underscore in front because that's the variable. And there's some problems when you try to use the same label for things over and over again, but here it's fine. So we're gonna check the value of our related variable here. So I'm gonna say if our variable slide 2 flipcard 1 is equal to the literal value of 0, which it is right now because we didn't assign it a value already, we're going to perform the following actions. We're going to assign, first of all, our complete variable, the one that says complete at the end, with a literal value of 1. So we're keeping track if we've pressed this button at least once. We're also going to assign just regular flipcard 1 with a literal value of 1 because we're going to be flipping it over. We're going to be keeping track whether it's flipped over or not. And we're going to create the flip over effect now, and that's done by applying effects. So the first action we're going to do after we take care of our variables is to apply effect. And we need to choose which object we're applying the effect to. So in this case, slide 02 flipcard 1, Always remember to label your objects because it makes it a lot easier to select the correct object when writing your advanced actions. And we're going to choose an exit effect. Now these are the same effects that you see in the timing panel, but we're triggering them based on the actions that your learner takes. So in this case here, we're going to be choosing collapse across. Collapse across looks like an object that's collapsing in on itself. So kind of the first half of the flip effect. And I'm going to click the 3-dot button here. We're going to set the duration to be shorter than 2 seconds because 2 seconds is too long. And I'm going to set the ease at 100%. And we'll click OK. Now, if you're running additional effects on an object, you need to give the effect or the object time to display that first flip across effect. So we need to delay the next action by that same 0.3 seconds. Otherwise, we'll never see it. It will happen too fast. So I'm going to choose the action delay next actions by the literal value of 0.3 seconds. Now, it's collapsed in on itself, but it's still in the normal state. So we want to change the state to the flipped effect before we do the opposite of collapse across and have it stretch across and show the flipped over state. So we need to change the state of flip card 1 to flipped, and now we can apply the opposite effect of collapse across. So let's apply effect. Again, we're working with flip card 1, and in this case it's an entrance effect, and we need to scroll down to find it, and it's called stretch across. Like before, we need to set the duration, and we're going to set the ease effect at 100% as well. Okay, so essentially if you click on it once, it will flip over, and if you click on it again, nothing will happen because we haven't accounted for what happens when it's already equal a value of 1. So that's going to go in the else section here. To make it a little bit easier, we can select the second line where we're assigning the variable with a value of 1. We don't need to worry about this first complete variable. But if we select that, hold down our Shift key and select the last item in our list of actions here and select copy. We can copy and paste that down to the else section and just make a couple of small changes to account for the flip back to normal effect. So we're going to assign the variable that keeps track of whether an object is flipped or not back to 0. The collapse across is the same, the delay next action is the same, but we're going to change this back to normal and then show the stretch across effect. So there's our first portion of this setup. Now remember this variable up here where we assign fc underscore complete with a value of 1. Every time we press one of our flip cards, we want to also check to see if all 3 of them have been completely pressed in order for us to then display the next button down below. So this is where the feature of having additional decision tabs within your advanced actions comes into play. So this first tab took care of what happens when we press the flip card. So I'm going to call this one press. And I'm going to double click on this second tab and we'll call this check, because what we're going to do here is check to see if all 3 have been pressed. And that's a real easy advanced action to write. Let's select conditional because we do have to check for that condition first. And we will select our 3 completed variables one by one to see if they are equal to a value of 1. If they are, we're done, right? So let's do the second variable. See if it is equal to the literal value of 1, and the third one as well. Don't forget that. You have to scroll down to see that one is equal to the literal value of 1. If that's the case, we can simply show our next button. So there's an action for that as well. Show. And if I type in next, I'll see all the objects that I labeled as next. In this case here, it's slide 01 next. So we're good there. Sorry, slide 02 next. Don't want to show the wrong one. And that's it. So we can save that as an action. The script has been saved successfully, and we can click OK. Now, it's usually around this point where people learning about advanced actions for the first time think, oh my gosh, that took a long time to create just one advanced action. Fortunately, Adobe Captivate gives you a capability of replicating this structure, making a few small changes, and creating the second advanced action and the third advanced action we need. So right up here in the upper right-hand corner is duplicate action. So we can press on that to create a duplicate. And it calls it duplicate of the original name here. So I'm just going to rename this to be for Flipkart 2. We'll get rid of the duplicate of part. And all I really need to do here is change all the references to the variables associated with Flipkart 01 to Flipkart 02, and all the references to Flipkart 01, the button itself, to Flipkart 02, and the same thing for our complete version of that variable. So this is real easy to do. I can go here and change this that we're checking the value of Flipkart 02. I'm just again using my keyboard to shorten that list. And if Flipkart 02 is equal to 0, we're going to update Flipkart 02 complete with a value of 1. Assign Flipkart 02 with a value of 1. We're going to collapse across Flipkart 02. Wait the 0.3 seconds and then complete the rest of that effect again on Flipkart 2 to flipped, Flipkart 2, stretch across. Don't forget your else section here. We need to update this as well. Flipkart 02, Flipkart 02, Flipkart 02. This is back to normal now, because remember this is the else section, and Flipkart 02. Click Update Action, and now we have 2 advanced actions for the first 2 Flipkarts. I'm going to duplicate it once more, and we'll do the same thing for Flipkart 3. So we'll just update all of our settings for Flipkart 3. This will be for Flipkart 3 complete. The variable for Flipkart 3. The object Flipkart 3. And the same thing again. And this will be flipped. Flipkart 3. And like I said before, don't forget your else section here. So we're doing that. And we're changing the state of Flipkart 3 back to normal. And then Flipkart 3 here. So if I press Update Action, I now have all 3 of the advanced actions that I need. So let's go ahead and press OK. And we can now close this. And selecting our first Flipkart, we can go to the Actions tab, replace the singular action of go to next slide, which is the default always in Captivate, with Execute Advanced Actions, and then we can choose Flipkart 1 from our list of advanced actions. Again, we'll do this for the second Flipkart, Flipkart 2, and then the third Flipkart, Execute Advanced Actions, Flipkart 3. So Before we get on to the next interaction, let's test this out and make sure that it works as expected. So I'm going to click on Preview HTML5 in Browser, and here we go. So there's our title slide. Let's click Begin, and we can click on our flip card, click on the second one, and only once we click on the third one does our next button appear. So great solution when you want to make sure that the learner is exposed to all the information before moving forward. Let's exit this browser, go back to our project here. So before we move on to the next type of interaction, let's talk a little bit about flip cards. Flip cards are a great way to communicate lots of information without it all appearing on the screen at the same time. You can create a 2 flip card version of this interaction, or 4 flip card version of this interaction, 5, 6. But once you start getting to like 6 or 7, of course, you're going to be cramped for real estate on screen. And that's where something like a content carousel might take over, where the flip cards kind of end. Here's a content carousel. Now, content carousels can display a singular piece of information, and using the left and right arrows, navigate through all of these different phases or stages or steps. So it's quite useful when you're dealing with cognitive load and you want to chunk out that information for your learner into just bite-sized pieces like this. Here's how I created the objects on the slide. So first of all, I have a next button that's currently set not to be visible in output. I have this multi-state object, and if we go into state view, you can see that it's just simply a rounded rectangle with some text and an icon for each of the text items displayed on screen. One of the really cool things of Adobe Captivate is the ability to add additional objects within a multi-state object. So you can kind of build something cool like this. Now I've got 2 images used as buttons, these chevrons that you see on the left and the right. And the states for those are simply the normal version of the image. And secondly, I created a disabled state where the image is just simply partially transparent. So it looks grayed out when you select the disabled state. Normally with images used as buttons, you'll see the rollover and the down states. I didn't think they were necessary for this interaction, and in fact might even interfere with how the interaction looks. So I deleted those states. So the first thing we need to do is create a variable to keep track of what position of our carousel we're on. Now this example has 4 positions, but again, you could use this for 6 items or 10 items or whatever amount you think is appropriate for your learning. So I'm going to go into the project drop-down menu and select variables. We're going to click on Add New, and following the same convention I used before, I'm going to start with underscore S03 underscore carousel. And I can press save. I don't need to assign a value. I'll be doing that later, of course. So I can go ahead and press save, and I can close the variables window. Now, I actually need 3 advanced actions. There's going to be one advanced action that runs at the beginning of the slide, or in other words, when my learner arrives on the slide, and there'll be an advanced action for both the left and the right chevrons or arrows or whatever you wish to call them. So let's start with the onEnter advanced action. So I'm going to click on the project drop-down menu and select advanced actions. I'm going to call this advanced action slide 03 underscore carousel. And essentially what I'm going to do is manipulate all of the objects on screen, including my variable, and set it up to be the same appearance every single time a learner arrives on this slide. So we're going to start with assigning our carousel variable a value of 1, because we're going to return this to the first position of our content carousel. So the variable needs to match that. So we'll assign And I can cheat by just typing in some of the words that make up that variable with a literal value of 1. Now, if I'm on the first position, the left arrow needs to look disabled. So we're going to change the state of our left arrow to disabled. And we actually want it disabled. So if someone clicks on it, I don't want it to work. So we're going to disable, that's actually an action, and we'll just type in left. We need to make sure that our multi-state object that contains the images and the text is set to position 1. So we're going to change the state of our carousel object to step 1. Obviously, it's the normal state in this case here. We also want to make sure that the right arrow is enabled, but also looks enabled as well. So we're going to change the state of our right arrow to normal. And in case it was disabled from the last time we visited, we're going to enable the right arrow as well. And that's it. So we're going to save this as an action. Click OK, and we can close the advanced action window. So on the slide itself, with nothing selected, and if you want to be sure that you're not selecting anything, click on the film strip icon that represents the slide, go to the Actions tab, and select On Enter, Execute Advanced Actions, and find your Slide 3 carousel. Okay? Now we need an advanced action for the left button and the right button. I'm going to start by writing the advanced action for the right button. I will be doing some redundancy in this, and you'll see why in a little bit. So as you're watching me produce it, you might be wondering to yourself why the right arrow would need instructions for the first position, since you would never right arrow into the first position. You'll see why in a little bit here. So let's go to the project drop-down menu and select Advanced Actions, and we will call this slide 03 underscore right. Now we have our variable that keeps track of the position, and every time you press the right button, we need to increase that variable by a value of 1. So we're going to use the action increment, and we choose our variable here as 3 carousel by a value of 1. That's the only thing I want to have happen on this part of the advanced action. So I'm going to call this, like before, press. So this is what happens when I press the right arrow. Now on the subsequent decision tabs, I need to check the value of the carousel and set up the slide accordingly depending on what that value is. So let's start with if equals 1. Okay, so when we do this, we're going to select a conditional tab, and we're going to check the condition of our carousel variable. So variable carousel is equal to the literal value of 1. So when we are on the first position, we're going to do something very similar to our onEnter script that we just wrote. So we're going to change the state of our left button to disabled. We are actually going to disable our left button. We're going to change the state of our multi-state object as 3 carousel to the normal or step 1 position. And we are going to change the state of our right button to normal and make sure that that button is in fact enabled. Okay, so that takes care of if our carousel variable is equal to 1. Now, again, like before, you might be thinking, geez, I'm going to have to write a whole bunch of these decision tabs. You could duplicate this using duplicate decision and just make some small changes. So we're going to do if equals 2, and we'll change the conditional part to be checking to see if it's equal to 2. And we'll just change a few things. So we want now, of course, if we're on the position 2, we want this to be actually normal and enabled. This is the left arrow. And of course, we're going to be on the step 2 position. This part stays the same. So now I need to create what happens when it's equal to 3. So we'll duplicate number 2, change the title of the tab itself to 3. Don't forget to update the condition there if it's equal to 3. Only thing I need to change here is step 2 to step 3, because the normal state of the left arrow and the normal state of the right arrow is what we want to have in this situation. There's step 3. And of course, you would repeat this like if you had a content carousel that had 7, 8, 9 different stages, you would do this for all of them. Finally, when you get to the last one, which in our case is only 4, but it could be 9, 10, whatever it would be, we're going to duplicate it again. We'll change its name as we've done up till now, and change the condition to also match that number. And the other thing you're going to change is now we want to disable the right button because we're on the last position. So we're going to disable that, and we're going to literally disable the button itself here. And of course, don't forget to change this to be the final step in your content carousel. One last thing you're going to do with the last tab is also show your next button, because of course we're at the end of the carousel. They've completed the interaction. So we're going to show slide 3 next. Okay, so I can save this as an action, click OK, and here's where that redundancy thing comes into place. It really saves you a lot of steps to figuring out exactly what you need for each of the arrows, because now I can simply duplicate the right and make one small change to the first tab. So I have the right advanced action done. I'm going to duplicate this action, change the title to slide 3 left, and instead of incrementing my S03 carousel by a value 1, we're going to decrement our slide 3 carousel by a value of 1. That's it. All of these decision tabs remain the same. So I can update that and have 2 advanced actions that are almost the same. Close this window, and now we can assign our left arrow to execute the left advanced action and the right arrow to execute the right arrow advanced action. And if we've done everything correctly, and I think we have, let's preview this and see how it works. Okay, we'll quickly skip past all of this. We know this works. So now when we arrive on the content carousel slide, it sets itself up to be on position 1. It disables the left arrow, and of course, no matter how many times I press that, it's not going anywhere. And I can go ahead and press the right arrow and toggle through all of these. The next button comes up on the final position, and it disables the right arrow. I still can use the left arrow to go back and review it again if I wish, but now I'm ready to proceed with the rest of the course once I've reviewed all the content in this carousel. So let's close the browser. So in this final interaction, I'm going to show you how to build a multiple choice single answer knowledge check. Some of you might be wondering, why do this? There, of course, are built-in question slides in Adobe Captivate. In fact, if we go to the master slide here, we can see that there is, in fact, a multiple choice true false fill in the blank sequence master slide that would work fine for multiple choice single answer questions. But one of the things that comes to mind, of course, is the stakeholder or the subject matter expert that you're working with might say, I don't like the idea of radio buttons. I want something more unique, something that looks a little bit different than the default Captivate projects. And that's when, of course, these sorts of custom solutions come into place. So let me first of all explain what's happening on the screen here so you can see what we're working with. So I have 4 smart shapes used as buttons. These are the answers. The correct answer is Ontario. British Columbia, Manitoba, and Quebec are distractors. These are simply rounded rectangles used as buttons. I deleted the states as I often do, and I created a custom state called selected. So this will be bright white to denote that this is the answer that I've selected. Also on the slide is a multi-state object. I've called this S04 underscore feedback. And if we scroll through all of the states that this particular object has, we can kind of explain what's going on here. So the normal state is blank, no text, no color. It's completely transparent. If we want to show a correct feedback caption, we can. That's correct. Paul lives in the province of Ontario. He's lived in etc., etc. And then we also have feedback for all of the answers. So if you chose British Columbia, you would get feedback specific to British Columbia, Manitoba, Quebec, and a final example, incomplete. So just a simple message, you must select an answer to submit. We have, of course, like on the other interactions, slide 4 next, and it's been set to be not visible in output, as you can see here. And there's also a submit button. This is what we'll do to check our answers. So we actually need 4 variables, one for each of these answers. So let's start by producing those. So we'll click on the project drop-down menu and select variables. And I'll click on add new variable. I'll call these underscore S04 underscore A for answer 01. Like before, I'm going to copy that and we'll save it, add a new one, paste it in, and just change it to answer 2. Save it, answer 3, save it, answer 4, and then save it. So I can exit from here, and we'll agree that answer 1 is British Columbia, answer 2 is Manitoba, answer 3 is Ontario, answer 4 is Quebec, right? So we don't get confused later on, left to right, top to bottom. So let's do the advanced action that we're going to need to run when learners click on British Columbia as an example, or in other words, answer 1. So we'll go to our project drop-down menu and select advanced actions. And we're going to call this slide 04 underscore A01. No underscore in front, so it's not a variable. And this is going to be a conditional advanced action. So we're going to look at the variables that we just created. In this case here, we're looking at slide 04, answer 1. If it is equal to the literal value of 0, we're going to do the following things. We're going to, first of all, assign slide 4, answer 1, with a literal value of 1. And in the event that one of the other 3 answers has been previously selected, we're also going to reset those back to 0. So slide 402 with the literal value of 0. Assign slide 4, answer 3 with a literal value of 0, assign answer 4 with a literal value of 0. Now we need to actually physically change the buttons to match the values that we're assigning these variables. So we're going to change the state of slide 04, answer 01, to selected, and change the state of slide 04, answer A, to normal. Change the state of slide 04, answer 3 to normal, and change the state of answer 4 also to normal. And we'll scroll down a little bit here. Now remember, there is the feedback caption. Now if I've tried this question once already, this will show some feedback here. I actually want to change that back to normal as well to clear out any feedback that was displayed previously. I know we haven't gotten to the submit yet. That's where that will happen. But if there's an answer and feedback already displayed, we want to reset that as well. So we're going to change the state of our feedback caption back to normal. Now that takes care of selecting a button, but what if I press it again and deselect it? I need to also take care of that. So in the else section, if slide 04 answer 1 is already equal to 1, we want to run this choice here, and we are going to assign answer 1 with the literal value 0. So in other words, we're resetting that answer back to normal, and we need to change the state of answer 1 back to normal, and we're still going to change the state as a precaution, our feedback caption also back to normal. So there's an example of selecting British Columbia, what happens when you click on that, what happens when you click on it again in the case of the else. So I can save this as an action, click OK, and we're going to do what we've done before and save ourselves some time and duplicate this advanced action and make a few changes for the 3 remaining answers that are on this slide. So let's duplicate it. We'll change it to answer 2, and I'll get rid of this duplicate of business. And in this case, we're going to be working with answer 2. So like before, it's very straightforward. We just want to change the variable that we're looking at here. In this case, it's going to be answer 2. And we're going to assign answer 2 with the value of 1 instead of answer 1. So I'm going to change this one back to 0 and change this one to 1. We're going to change the button for answer 1 back to normal and work with the selected version of answer 2, which is right up here. And that part remains the same. Under else, we're just going to again work with answer 2, change the state of the answer 2 button back to normal, and the feedback remains the same. So I can update that action. That takes care of answer 2. We'll duplicate it again, and this time we're working with answer 3, which incidentally is the correct answer, but nothing changes at this point. We're just going to change our variable to work with answer 3, the answer 3 variable, and we're going to update our variable values to show that answer 3 is selected, and change the button for answer 3 to selected. And then we go down to else and just change the variable to answer 3. Answer 3 for the object and change that back to normal. Again, this is the else option. and we can update that action there. Duplicate this one more time. This is for answer 4. And we'll get rid of the duplicate of business at the beginning there. Change this to work with the variable for answer 4. And we will change the value of the variable for answer 4 to 1. And change the object for answer 4 to selected. Again, don't forget the else. And remember, we're working with answer 4, the variable, answer 4, the object, and this will be going back to normal. So I can update this action, click OK, and click Close. Now we can select all of our objects here on the slide, and here's kind of a pro tip. You can first of all select Execute Advanced Actions for all of them at the same time, and then choose, for example, answer 1, and then one by one just change the answer script to answer 2, answer 3, answer 4. That saves you a couple clicks here. Now this would be a good time to test this. We don't have the submit functionality in there, but regardless, you can test it to make sure the button clicks and the selecting of the buttons is working okay. So let's preview this HTML5 in browser. And we'll quickly go through our existing interactions. And of course, now we're here. And let's make sure this works. So if I select an answer and then I select it again, it should toggle on and off. If I select an answer and choose another answer, the toggle should switch to that. And you can just kind of click around and make sure this works for all the different scenarios. So if I click on each one and then, yep, so I think we've got this portion working. So we know we can select our answer. That's the first step. The next thing we want to do is take care of our submit button. So I'm going to go into the project drop-down menu and select advanced actions. And we'll call this one S04_submit. Now, this is going to be a series of conditional tabs that we're going to create. The first one we'll create is for incomplete. And in this case, it's a conditional tab, so we need to select that. And we're going to check the value of our variables. So we're going to take a look at answer 01 and see if it is equal to the literal value of 0. You can do this to save yourself some steps here. We can copy that line and paste it in 3 more times, and then just change which variable we're looking at here. So this will be for answer 2, answer 3, answer 4. So if they're all equal to 0, we're going to change the feedback caption that we have on our slide to incomplete. And that takes care of the incomplete tab. We can duplicate this decision, and we'll start with British Columbia, answer 1. So we'll literally type in answer 1 up here. So if answer 1, everything else will still be 0, is literally 1, we're going to change the state of our feedback caption to British Columbia. So that is the feedback for answer 1 here. We can duplicate this again, and we'll call this one answer 2. Change answer 1 back to 0, and we'll change answer 2 to 1, because that's how we know answer 2 has been selected. This variable will have a value of 1. And in that case, that's for Manitoba. So we'll change this to give you the Manitoba feedback. Let's duplicate it once more. Or again, I should say, really, because it'll be a couple more times. Now, here is where the correct answer is going to be selected here. So we're going to do a few things here. Answer 3 is the correct answer, and that's for Ontario. So that's where I was born and raised and lived most of my life, actually all of my life. And we're going to change the feedback to correct. We have a specific feedback for that, but we're also going to do a bunch of other things here. First of all, we don't want someone to change their answer anymore because they've found the right answer. So we're going to disable answer 1. And again, we can use a shortcut here to do a bunch of these at once and just change the item that we're working with here. So we're going to disable all of the answers so they can't change their answer anymore. And this would be true if they return to this slide as well. And we're also going to show the next button because now it's time for them to move forward. So this is slide 4. And we're looking for next. There it is there. And let's duplicate answer 2 because that's closer to what we're looking for answer 4. And I'll just move that to the end. You can select any decision tab and use this move right or left control to move it. And we'll rename it answer 4. Okay. And this will be when the answer 4 has a value of 1. Let me just double check 3, 2. Yep, we've done that right so far. And in this case here, answer 4 is Quebec, so I'm going to change this to Quebec. So they can try this as many times as they wish. Selected answer, submit. They'll only get the next button and the correct feedback when they actually get the interaction correct. So we can save this as an action now. Click OK. And click close. So let's assign the advanced action we just created to the submit button. So I select the submit button. I go to the actions tab of my properties inspector and execute advanced actions and make sure that we have S4 submit selected. So now let's test this out and see if it works the way you'd expect it to. So HTML5 in browser. Okay, we'll quickly go through our previously built interactions here. Okay, so now we're on our single answer knowledge check. If I choose British Columbia, for example, actually let me unselect it and just try hitting submit. So there's our incomplete message. Let's choose British Columbia, press submit. Paul has visited British Columbia for work but has never lived there. Try again. And we'll just try it with all the other answers. Notice that the feedback goes away when I select another answer. Yeah, that looks good. That looks good. And of course, now I'll get it right. And of course, I can no longer change my answer, but I do have a next button and I can continue with the rest of the project. So here's one little bonus that I'd like to share with you. All of these interactions that we've built, my homework assignment to you is to create versions of these that you can reuse multiple times in another project. So maybe create a 3-answer multiple choice with single correct answer, or maybe create a 5-answer multiple choice with single answer feedback. And of course, you know, you've got a 4-item content carousel, a 5-item, a 6-item. Create generic versions of all of these. 2 flip cards, 4 flip cards, 5 flip cards, etc. And then you've got a template that you can work from. Now, here's an example of what I'm talking about. So if I needed to create a series of knowledge checks in a new project, if I duplicate this slide within the project, it's still going to be pointing to the old advanced actions, and that's not going to work correctly. But if I right-click on this slide and I copy it, and then I create a new project or open another project that I'm already working on, let me make sure it's the same size. And then I go ahead and paste that slide into this project. Not only does it apply all of the objects and the styles that I used before and creates the variables, but it also creates the advanced actions. So if I click on variables here, you'll see I have variables 1, 2, 3, and 4 for my answers. And if we go to our advanced actions, you will see answer 1, answer 2, answer 3, answer 4, and of course the submit advanced action as well. So everything is there with all my different tabs and everything. But here's the kicker, right? It's duplicated that again. If I paste it in a second time, and maybe even a third time, and quite frankly as many times as I wish, take a look what happens with variables here. Now it renames, creates new variables with new names. The new names may not make sense, but they're unique and they're going to be used by the appropriate advanced actions that you'll find on all of these slides. So if you take a look here, there's new versions of the answer 1 advanced action, the answer 1 advanced action for slide 3, and you'll have a whole bunch, and they're all unique and they're all tied to the right objects. So guess what? I can run this and create 3 unique multiple choice single answer questions that will all work independent of one another, and it will still capture and provide the feedback. Now all I need to do is change the question and the answers that are displayed on screen. If you want to make Ontario or the correct answer, answer 2, not a problem. You just take this answer here and move it up there, and so on. So you can totally reconfigure these slides however you wish, and instead of taking hours to build these sorts of advanced actions, you can replicate them in minutes. Thanks everyone. I hope you enjoy this e-learning course on e-learning, and don't forget to give yourself that time to build many versions of these slides so that you have a complete library of interactions that you can draw from and become a Captivate superhero by pulling these interactions out of your e-learning utility belt.
If you thought this video was helpful, please like and share it with your colleagues. If you need help with Adobe Captivate, hire Paul for one-on-one instruction. Paul's goal is to focus on lessons based on your specific needs. Visit his website at captivateteacher.com. And don't forget to subscribe to his YouTube channel.